Welcome, people of the World Wide Web, and it's movie review time because it's the weekend, and we have for you, obviously, Spider-Man across the multiverse. So, people out there, if you want to go and watch this film, there is one slightly bit at the end of the film. It's not really like an end credit scene or something, just it kind of sets up because number two is, I believe, to follow on to a third one. It isn't a complete story, it is the first part of a continuing story that kind of links back in with the first one. And where do we go from there? So hopefully you've seen the first one, because otherwise it's a little bit of an explanation, but it basically is Miles learning about his uncle who's the Prowler, him dying, having that pivotal effect on him like Uncle Ben does, and then basically the multiverse of the people coming in. Now this is the next one, as the title states, across the multiverse, expands on that. And expands on the fact that when they think they fixed it and sorted everything out and everybody returns to their own dimensions, actually there are issues still going on. It seems that one of the Spider-Men, so Spider-Man 2099, so you'll see him all with blue and red markings and stuff, Miguel O'Hara, he is the leader of this band, and he kind of goes around recruiting stuff. And the story of this is kind of him recruiting stuff to try and fix, and obviously because of what Miles has done, he kind of has upset this balance. Obviously, our previous returning characters like Spider-Gwen and Peter J. Parker. They're the two pivotal ones, and obviously you have a few other ones like Spider-Punk, who has kind of the spiked mohawks on his costume, obviously Spider-Man 2099, and a lot of other little ones here, there and everywhere. And I think Spider-Man India, I think he's called. And yeah, it's a nice continuation of this story. It does flow very well, but as I say, I'm not the biggest fan of the first one, and I had my reasons for this. And there were good and bad points to this one. So we're going to put the spoiler review up today. Now, there it is, and let's get going on it. So let's get going. So obviously the film. So I'll kind of retell or kind of relay how the story kind of lays out, and then as I go along, I will say what I liked and what I didn't like. Obviously, so this film kind of starts out. It starts from the viewpoint of Gwen Stacy, or Spider Gwen, and I really liked this. This started off. She's kind of doing drumming. They kind of got an artsy feel for this, and it worked quite well. She then goes home to her dad. Or as she's relaying, she regales obviously Peter in this universe. He took the lizard serum. She went to stop him, but unfortunately he dies. Captain Stacy, so Gwen's dad, believes that Spider Gwen or Spider Woman is the result. She caused the death of Gwen's friend Peter, not knowing that they are both the same person. And it's basically very laser focused on trying to thinking it'll fix everything if that happens. Obviously Gwen doesn't want to tell her dad and stuff and this happens, and then basically the radio goes off. There's a Vulture character who's in a natural art museum, and he then goes to fort it. Gwen suits up and goes to basically stop him. Obviously during the process of fighting this new alternate version, because he comes from a very kind of I would say Victorian. I'm not best with history, but obviously a very kind of Leonardo da Vinci style. Obviously he is from a different dimension. He's drawn in a different dimension, but very good, very lavish style with different weapons and stuff. And I absolutely love this character. This is something I haven't seen before, like a newer character. I mean, he may be from some of the comics, but I've not seen it. I really loved it. It made me appreciate that there is something that this film is bringing new elements and new characters to the franchise, and just obviously just the whole Spider world and comics and stuff. So I really liked this. I really liked how the Vulture was drawn and active, and then obviously you bring in the other characters. Now obviously you bring in two of the Spider people, Miguel and Len, not Jessica Jones. basically another Spider, Jessica Drew, but she is pregnant like she is in the comics. She is, I believe, African American phrase in this one, but that's fine. You know, it works for me. She's on a motorbike. You don't really. She tells she's got a very good looking husband, and then there isn't any backstory leads to. Again, Miguel, he turns up and fighting, and then it kind of has a flash that he kind of turns into some sort of vampire werewolf thing, and then it doesn't get mentioned. It only gets mentioned once in the rest of like the 2.25 hour movie. I thought that was a bit strange, but I think it's maybe leading up to something in the future, so I'm positive. And anyway, so Gwen Glenn gets taken on board of the team because obviously at the end of this fight, her dad goes to arrest her. She pulls off the mask. He still goes to arrest her, and she obviously escapes. She joins the spiderverse, and then obviously a few months later, she turns up in Miles Morales' universe. Miles is having a few bit issues trying to balance school and that. Obviously meets Gwen, reunites it, and then not realizing that Gwen is actually here for a supervillain of the week that he's been fighting called the Spot, who was created from the reaction blown up by the King in the final fight with Kingpin in the first one. He's a little bit silly, the Spot. He builds. There's a whole point that the Spot is supposed to be not a massive threatening villain. He never really has been, as far as I'm aware, in the comics and the TV series. And then this is all built into, at the end, you kind of see him. All the whole story is he's kind of behind the scenes in little bits, and he's just trying to power himself up by finding this black hole matter, which means he goes to different realities. When Miles kind of comes across that Gwen's looking for him, he then tags along and then kind of meets all the other ones, and then they kind of go from dimension to dimension, or a few dimensions and stuff, leading to them realising that actually Miles is kind of a oddity. He's kind of caused this in a way in what he does, and wherever he goes, he kind of causes issues with the whole, you know, continuity and multiverse and stuff like this. And then it's basically all the spiders against him, except for Gwen and Peter J. Parker and a few others that decide to go off. So that gives you basically the gist. What did I like? Spider-Gwen, loved, you know, Miles. He's a good character. Doesn't really get too much time to shine in this. And then we get to the bits that there's going to be lots of stuff. So initially, when you meet the characters, and when the characters and the main characters and any scene that you're seeing that they're in the forefront and they're talking to each other, it's fine. It's cel shaded. Reminds me much of the Telltale games if you've ever seen them. And it works well. You can tell with the two stories acting, you know, they're starting to build their chemistry. Obviously, Miles and Gwen, there is something there. And, you know, I did like Gwen taking a bit more of a forefront in this. You meet Spider-Man India. I liked his world and stuff. And it was good. The action, you know, they bring some characters in. I like the Vulture. I like the fact that he was drawn differently to kind of cast him from a different dimension. Spider-Punk has the same thing. When he takes his mask off, you'll see he is very different, and I like that because they travel, I think, about 6 different dimensions in this, or they feature 6 different ones, and there's so much more. And when they're in different dimensions, their style kind of comes across, and I like that. What I didn't like, though, and this is going to be a big thing, you know, this is, I think, the longest running animated film that has been produced, and you know, everybody seems to love this, and I seem to be on a very different viewpoint. And my viewpoint is the style and how they use it, I feel, in a lot of places is lazy. My reason for this, so as it starts off and you learn about Gwen and she's doing a drum solo, that's good. They're trying something a bit artsy and different, and because of she's hitting the drums and it's then causing cascades, works really well. She then goes home to her apartment, and literally it is like a painting. Her dad and her are walking around, and you could tell them, and it's very blocky, you know, there's no fine line details to any of the background. And yes, I appreciate it's these two having an interaction, and I grasp that they're in her dad's apartment, or their apartment if you want, but it's not making me gravitate to their world. I gravitate to the characters, and then when the characters are ripped out of that world, because we were talking about a multiverse, I kind of forgot about her world, kind of forgot about her dad, kind of forgot about everything. I just have Gwen because I see her in the foreground, because literally it has just been her and her dad talking. Now, why they've decided to go with this, whether it's a budget thing, as I said, this is very much Disney. I've explained this in Little Mermaid of how they make loads of things dark so you can't see stuff. It seems to be a technique of doing it. I mean, when her and her dad talking, they get like an emotional one, and there's like blurs of colour. There's not even a background, and I'm like, I get you're trying to convey something. Maybe here we're trying to be very artsy, but to me, it's very distracting. It's Spider-Man has been very much kind of, as I say, there are comic book aspects that are featuring that sometimes work, but I think this style that they did a lot of different styles throughout it, and they used the same sort of effects in quite a few places, and it just got distracting, and it just didn't work for me, in my opinion. As I say, like Gwen and I are talking with her dad, and I say, and then it kind of gets like a painting and paint just dribbling down. But then she goes to like the museum. So outside the museum, you got people, you've got police all lined up, really brilliantly done. She kind of swings around, she kind of webs them and stuff like this, all perfectly done. Looks really well, looks really really nice. Perfectly drawn or animated and perfectly done. Goes into the museum again. It's like grey walls with a little bit. You can't really even see artwork. The vulture comes in really amazingly drawn and stuff like that, but there's nothing around him. The focus is just on that character, is not on the world. He then cuts the statue, which you kind of see close up, and then it's grey, and then even when there's destruction, it's just kind of all grey bits, and it's like it's really hard to tell. And they did this, and I'm like, why are you switching styles? Why do you keep going, we'll keep details on that when it's a big scene, but when it's any close-ups, we'll keep it as vague as keep it. And I did not like that sort of art style at all. But at first I was like, oh okay, and I had my reservations that this was Gwen's world, and because the apartment, this is kind of the style that they went with, and it's just her world. But then we went into Miles, and Miles is all perfect and all stuff like this, and then certain times he's swinging or trying to rush through a thing, and then it's kind of comic booky style, and then it goes back to normal, and then comic book style, and then normal, and then they had a thing where it was almost like if you've ever been to see a 3D movie and you don't have your 3D glasses on, and it's like a red and a kind of blue. Now he has a dinner party with his family, and if it is any characters that are at the front, everybody else has this weird effect on them. The scenery has it on it, and I'm sitting there going, have I walked into a 3D film and I just was supposed to bring my glasses, I checked my ticket, I checked everyone else, no one has this, and it kept coming up in his, and I'm like, whose idea is this? Because it was just almost hurting my eyes to watch this sort of stuff. I said it was distracting because like two people are talking, and when you have a scene and you're looking and like people are walking around, like, because I couldn't, it's really kind of almost hurting your eyes and almost a bit of blurring and stuff. And I'm like, why has someone done this? What is their mindset? And this is what carries on. Like they went to so then Gwen turns up, and then there's some spinning stars that they're going around the city, and it all looks normal, and then it's kind of flashy comic book and straight lines and almost like the POW, like the only way when I say comic book, it's very much like the Batman of the Adam West genre, POW booth, and there's a few bits like that, and I'm like, it's like someone has kind of got, I like Batman, Adam West style, I like the kind of artsy painting style, I like Andy Wallach kind of style, and trying to shove all these things in every like other scene, and I was just like, I get it's different worlds, but the fact it isn't constant for each world. It's like one scene it's fine, the next you're in a different part of the city or different, and it's all weird and blurry, and I absolutely almost detested. By the end of it, I was just so fed up with all the different animation. As I say, the characters and how they interact and how they look. Like I say, like the Vulture, like Spider-Punk and stuff, like Miguel, really done well. I like the chemistry between Miles and, I like where it's going. I like Peter J. Parker. I like the fact he has a daughter now, and I like, stuff how they're interacting, and I understand the whole story of how Miles has screwed everything up. I appreciate that, and I thought it was quite good. And how they're building Spot up in between. I say, and like when I go to Spider India's world, I really like his world and how most of that fight scene and stuff was done. And obviously Miles saves someone in his realm, and that causes issues anyway. But it was just here, it was used so often and so all over the place. It's not like it was, it was not like you went to Lego World and you would get a Lego type style, and then you go back to normal world and it'd be normal. It was kind of like you go to Lego World, you'd have Lego style, then you'd have something else, then you go back to Lego style, then you go back to, and I was like, I don't know whose thought process is. To me, I say, I love animation, I love the details, and the fact this is a movie across the multiverse, apart from, as unfortunately, the Lego bits, when you were in the different worlds, because of how their weird art styles were, you know, like, it hurt my eyes and just was distracting and took me away from the main people. I didn't actually take in the main world to have more appreciation of all these different, you know, apart from like maybe in the Indian kind of, or the Spider-Man India kind of one, and even parts of Miles, I probably couldn't tell you any of the other stuff that was featured, maybe the Lego stuff. And I said I was so distracted by it. I mean, but anyway, that is my opinion. As I say, I don't think it's a bad film, but I no way think it's as good as a lot of people are saying. I mean, I'm going to rate this 6 out of 10. Obviously, it is part of a trilogy, possibly a trilogy. You have to watch the other film and that, so it wouldn't get as, it probably would never get a 10 in my book anyway. It'd probably get a 8 or a 9 if it was like the best film ever. But I say, it seems to be Disney, and it seems to be this very lazy art style. You know, let's make things black so we can't see the details, so we don't have to worry about it. Let's do these weird effects on this stuff so we don't do the details and stuff like this. So it distracts you and takes away from stuff and that. And I'm sure I'd probably, with all these different things, miss stuff that they were talking about, because I was like, is that somebody? Is that not? I can't tell. It's a bit weird. It's making my eyes go a bit funny. Who knows? So I give it 6 out of 10. That is, you know, that's my rating. You know, I probably will buy it because I had the first one. I'm interested to look at the second one, and I'm mainly interested to look at the third one. But it's just this art style and stuff. And I mean, I'm not against this art style. This art style was used in Puss in Boots, the recent film that come across. But it was used like, it had a properly solid animation, all world, and then in the beginning he fights this big troll. And for some of the scenes, they sort of have flashing panes and panels, and it was only for like this one scene, and it made that fight actually so much more better. But then it isn't used again because it isn't needed to. It was just because it was a grand scale with this little cat fighting this giant thing. Now it wasn't. They didn't have, you know, because they kept repeatedly used different ones and for an in and out. I said, to me it just didn't work. It seemed, as I say, it seemed very lazy. Especially the fact of, you know, when you go to the world where all the Spider-Men are, the stuff like distracted me. Like, I wanted to actually meet more of the characters and get to know more about their worlds and learn how they're all interlinked, all more interlinked, because there was a lot of cameos to the live action Spider-Man and other stuff. But anyway, I could go on and on. So yeah, this has been my review for Spider-Man Across the Multiverse. Hope you enjoyed the review. If you're not, please let me know. Have you seen this? Do you disagree with me? Which I'm sure probably a lot of people will do. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Otherwise, I've been Cypher Sigma. I'll see you in the next one.